Good afternoon. I'm Lucy Beednell with the ARC of Northern Virginia, and we are really excited to be talking with you today about a topic that we get a lot of questions on, and that's how, as people with disabilities and parents and loved ones are navigating the caregiver crisis, how do we find the right people to provide care for us? How do we sometimes make that work with a live-in caregiver? Live in for children or even live in for adults. So, as we talk today, I'll speak a little bit in the beginning as a quick overview of Virginia's Medicaid Waiver program, which is the program that pays for caregivers in Virginia. And we'll go through a little bit of how you would apply and what that looks like. And then I'll turn things over to Susan from Apex Social, who can talk a little bit about how their wonderful model of providing live-in support works with or without the waiver, right? And how that can be a boost to families. And then at the end, we hope to be joined by Lindsay, who's a parent who has worked with Apex Social, who can provide some of that parent perspective. And we'll open it up to your questions. And we intend to end on time at right about the 1 hour mark. All right. So again, quickly, I'm going to overview waivers, and then Apex Social will talk about their services, parents, then Q&A. So diving right into waivers.
Hi.
We're so glad to have Lindsay with us. And again, she'll provide her parent perspective here. So you should be able to see all of us on the screen if you want to adjust to that. Medicaid waivers are a program that are meant to be a one-stop shop, meaning if you're young or old and have a developmental disability, or if you have significant needs or small needs or employment needs or residential needs, right? All these kinds of things, really it all comes in that Medicaid waiver bucket in Virginia. And generally speaking, once someone receives a waiver, they keep it for the rest of their lives, so long as they continue to be eligible. They don't, we're not going to wake up one day without a developmental disability, but if the person continues to have support needs, continues to meet the financial and the functional criteria, continues to live in Virginia, those kinds of things, then most people keep their waiver for life. It is the only public, meaning free or low cost, way to get a lot of ongoing help with caregivers in Virginia. So really important program to look at. Virginia has essentially two types of waivers. One is on the top of your screen in dark blue. Those are the developmental disability waivers. Technically, there are three different developmental disability waivers. Really, the difference between the three is some subtle differences in services. But for the purposes of our discussion, they're really the same thing because they have the same eligibility criteria, you apply at the same place, and they share a waiting list. So functionally, they're very, very similar. Virginia has another waiver program called the Commonwealth Coordinated Care, or CCC Plus waiver. If you heard of it many years ago, it was sometimes called the EDCD waiver, a different name. So we'll talk quickly today about these DD waivers and the CCC Plus waivers and how to know if one, both, or the other are the right options for you. The DD waivers require someone to have a developmental disability diagnosis. Autism, Down syndrome, cerebral palsy. I mean, there are thousands, right, of developmental disabilities in the world and some that just a few people have, but we're looking for something in that realm. And the waivers provide a pretty large menu of services for children and adults at home or in the community. So if someone needed nursing care or 24/7 support or way less, those could be offered under the Developmental Disability Waivers Program. The DD waivers have a case manager that comes with them that helps you navigate services, not just within the waiver, but beyond. So you would sit down with them and say, what does my whole life look like? And what are my goals? And what do I need? How does the waiver help me meet those goals? And what other resources can we bring in to help me meet those goals? It is a school program, a grant program, a volunteer opportunity, whatever that is. The downside of the DD waivers is they have a significant waiting list that's based upon urgency of need. And of course, all of our urgency of need are constantly in flux, let alone when we look at thousands of people across the state. So it's really hard to predict a waiting time. As a result of that waiting list, we talk a fair amount about this CCC Plus waiver. It was originally intended to keep older adults out of nursing homes, but there's no age minimum. So at any given time, about a third to a quarter of people waiting for a DD waiver have enough need to be eligible for the CCC Plus waiver in the meantime. So there's some pretty significant overlap between those populations. The CCC plus waiver requires some kind of disability diagnosis that's not just mental health. So it could be Alzheimer's or dementia. It could also be Down syndrome or autism or a developmental disability and a medical need. And this is really where the eligibility for those two waivers is different. So with our CCC plus waiver, we're looking for not just does this person take a medication, but do they have maybe a seizure disorder and a seizure protocol and seizure monitoring, and right, are we providing help on a regular basis that either doctors and nurses are providing or people trained by doctors and nurses provide, right? If maybe this person has a feeding tube, maybe mom and dad had to be trained by a nurse on how to do that. That would be a good example of someone who would be eligible for a CCC plus waiver. Unlike the DD waiver, they have a much shorter menu of services, mostly home care and nursing, not employment supports, not residential supports, not 24/7 care options, generally speaking, a 56-hour-a-week cap on care. They don't have a case manager, but they also don't have a waiting list. So like I said, for a lot of people, it makes sense if they're eligible for both to apply for both programs, wait on the waiting list for one, and use the CCC plus waiver in the meantime. When we look at whether or not you're eligible for the waivers, we talk about three things: your diagnosis, what the state calls functional criteria. What I would say is how much help do you need with stuff? And then three, financial criteria. So the quickly here, we talked a little bit about the diagnosis, right? DD waivers need DD diagnosis. CCC plus waiver can have some kind of disability diagnosis. For the DD waivers, in terms of functional need, we're looking at, does this person need help with, could be bathing, dressing, using the restroom kind of things, but it could also be economic self-sufficiency, taking care of themselves in the place that they live, managing their behaviors calmly, those kinds of things. And for the CCC plus waiver, we're looking at really, do they have medical and hands-on support needs? And the financial criteria for waivers are similar. It's always dependent upon the person with a disability, not their whole family. If they're a baby or if they're a grown up, it doesn't matter. We're only looking at the finances of the person with the disability. And we're looking at, do they have under $2,000 in assets? Or if they have more, are those assets protected in a special needs trust or ABLE account? And does that person meet our income qualifications, which in today's terms mean, is the person with a disability, even if they're a child, and it's silly to ask, are they earning less than $2,742 a month in income? That's a number for this year, in case you want to know it exactly. Waivers offer, like I said, a big range of services. Both the DD and the CCC plus waiver can offer a one-to-one aid, a caregiver that comes into the home. And that's where we'll talk about that intersection with Apex Social. Those aides can work on companionship, skill building, just basic caregiving, helping the person get through the day and helping to take care of their meals and home and things like that. And it can be in the home of a family, or once the person is 18 or older, it can be in their own home. And then the waiver can continue to provide care. The waivers, the DD waiver in specific offers a range of employment and daytime supports for people who have aged out of school. And the waivers can offer home modifications. So if we're looking at a situation, for example, where we want someone to stay in the family home, but we need a fence, or we're going to elope, or we need keypad locks on the doors so we make sure the right people are in or out, or we need wider doorways and modified toilets and all those other kinds of things that you can imagine in terms of home modifications. The DD waiver and CCC plus waiver can provide those. Both waivers can provide portable technology. If the person with a disability, a communication device is what's asked for most often that I see, but it can be other kinds of things. Both waivers can provide nursing care. So the DD waiver can provide some transportation reimbursement in limited cases, and both waivers, if the person's over 18, can provide some remote monitoring. So maybe we look at a situation where someone who's over 18 has a live-in caregiver who's there part of the time, and when that live-in caregiver, because they don't work 24/7, of course, is off not working, maybe there's remote monitoring. Maybe there's other ways that that person with a disability gets support or brings in other staff. So when you receive a waiver, I feel it's like being given a giant menu at a restaurant where you start putting together all of the pieces that make sense for you. As you think about applying for waivers, know that all of the DD waivers receive applications through our local community services boards, often called CSBs. That's where you'll call and say, hey, I'm interested in this waiver. I think it may provide the supports that we need. They'll send you a big old packet of paperwork. And as the grown-ups in the life of this person with the disability, you'll know the answers to the questions that those paperwork pieces are asking. You'll send it back with an evaluation showing that the person has a developmental disability. They'll meet with you and say, great, we got your big old stack of paperwork and your diagnostic evaluation. We're going to sit down and ask you some questions about how much help this person needs when. There's an example, or actually the actual forms that they use to give that assessment on the ARC of Northern Virginia's website if you want to see it. And if you can't find it, just reach out to me. And then the CSB will say, great, you're perfectly eligible. But like I said, this waiver has a waiting list based on urgency of need. So let's talk about where you are on that waiting list. For the CCC plus waivers, like I said, that are available for people who have disabilities and medical needs, you're calling your local Department of Social Services. Generally, the rules changed a few years ago, and sometimes it's a health department that does the screening. These are the right phone numbers, but if they don't say Department of Social Services when you answer the phone, don't panic. They will ask you some questions on the phone, really about medical care and hands-on care, bathing, dressing, restroom kinds of things. Then they'll send a nurse out to the home who asks very similar questions in person. And if that visit goes well, then they'll say, all right, let's start enrolling you in this waiver because there is no waiting list. That's not an instant process because you're dealing with state bureaucracy, right? So it's filling out forms and waiting for the forms to be processed and those kinds of things. I usually tell people from the day that you called for a waiver, if things went stellar, 2 months until you were using services, more likely 3, 4, 5. I've even seen 6 months in cases where it was like, oh, I can't meet that day. You can't meet this day. We lost the paperwork, right? So I would say, though there's no waiting list, this also doesn't mean there's help tomorrow. Like I mentioned, all the last allusion to the DD waiver waiting list based upon urgency of need. So if you find, we put our loved one on this waiting list when they were 2 or 3 years old and we were doing pretty well, but now we find they're aging out of school or hormones have hit and we have a teenager who is very difficult to support in new ways, or parents' needs have changed. They have their own health issues or other kids with disabilities or sandwich caregiving issues, all the things that make life complicated. That's what you want the Community Services Board to know because that affects the person's status on that waiting list, right? The more urgently they need care and the fewer resources available to them, the more likely they are to get a waiver quickly. Okay. And once you're on the waiting list, you're in what's called priority 1, 2, or 3, and that flexes all the time. So maybe you're most urgently in need in priority 1, but mom comes home from being deployed and things go really well, and then you move down on the waiting list, or the opposite happens. Maybe a parent passes away or another sibling needs significant need and you move further up the waiting list. All of that kind of thing can happen. My contact information's here, and I'm the person who will send follow-ups from the webinar. So you're welcome to send me questions about waivers anytime. We could spend like days talking about waivers, but just so you have a general kind of feel, they're what's out there. And I'll turn things over now to Susan to share a little bit about the work that Apex Social does and how that can intersect with the waiver as you look at options for live-in caregivers.
Thank you so much, Lucy. I'm so honored to be here today and share what our team has built over the last 15 years. And I'm super excited to also welcome Lindsay here. Hi, Lindsay, one of our really valued host families who gives such a great opportunity, who's such a great employer also for our care professional that she's hosting. So I've prepared a few slides and I'm going to pull them up here and share my screen. So I'm going to share my screen first. Disabled, can you enable me? Maybe make me co-host or something. So, oh, now it works. Okay. So, share. And full screen. Does everybody see me? Thumbs up? Perfect. So, quick introduction about me. My name is Susan Ace. I founded Apex Social, And I'm a mom of 3 kids. I have a 3-year-old, a 15-year-old, and a 17-year-old. My middle one has some pretty severe ADHD and it's all over the place. But really, initially, I started the program because I was in investment management. I had a really exciting career. I loved my career. And then when I had kids, I also realized that I needed care for them. And I'm German, so I wanted to bring German, to my family. And it turned out over time that I found these incredible German nurses, therapists, and early childhood educator teacher who would join my family as another adult in our home to help me have our family as a whole functioning really well. So it's really exciting for me that over time, that what I've created just to solve my own childcare solution is now something that is really helping a lot of people across the United States and Australia. We didn't really start out as a dedicated program for kids with disabilities or all abilities. I was thinking at the time we need care for newborns, infants, toddlers, and probably the people will be German speaking in the homes. And it's not the case. It's actually turned into a very rewarding cultural exchange program for all of our care professionals that we're able to bring to the United States and for our host families as well. The majority of our families speak English in the home. They speak English with their children. The care professionals have really good English from the German schooling. And when they come here within a few weeks, their vocabulary gets stronger and their confidence gets stronger and the communication is working really well. So with my demanding career, I personally really understand what the challenges are that all of our families, that we as parents face in a really high quality childcare brings a lot of relief to our personal and to our professional lives. I really feel like that not only is it time consuming, but it's very difficult and an emotional process to navigate, to find the right person to take care for your kids. And that's when the first arrow that some people are facing is when they're trying to mix together that one person that takes care of the kids with household responsibility, cleaning, and things that can be easily replaced. When that gets mixed up too much, then those relationships sometimes fail. So Apex Social has really become the trusted advisor for many families. We have placed over 2,000 care professionals over the last years for a 1 or 2 year experience in the United States and catering to families with children of all abilities. Our offering is really encompasses the care of newborns, twins, toddlers, preschool, K to 12, and even now through the pandemic, we opened up to 18 to 20 years old because the people we source from Germany over several years as they're going through their education, they come on a J1 visa and the cutoff is 26 years old when they enter, and then they can stay for 2 years. With the young Americans that we brought into our program, they have no limitation on their own age, but also not limitations on the children's age they care for. So the international people can only care until they're 17. Once they turn 18, they can no longer care for that child. But the Americans can care beyond 18. There's no age restriction there. And many families where the kids have been, or the families have been with us for many years, and then all of a sudden the children age out, they were kind of like in a pinch. And now with this new solution that we've found wonderful people in different states and apply the same mindset for them to go into a different state and have that inter-American culture exchange, it works really well in the attraction of great talent. So what we have developed is a guarantee for our families so they feel kind of confident that the people they receive through Apex Social, they really have strong skill set, and we recruit through a vast network of over 400 educational schools in Europe and in the United States. through vocational trainings, through universities, through hospitals, and mostly from referrals from organizations and the professors that work in these institutions, where they're recommending their best talent to our program. And we start working with them like in their first year and their second year of their education, because a person who chooses a career to work as a therapist or as a nurse, they're not waking up one day and thinking, oh, next month I'm going into a different country and spend a year there and working with kids. This concept needs to be introduced to them, and we spend a lot of time with them in their first year and their second year and their third year of their education. So they plan that as part of their personal and professional development, as part of their career planning. That's how we're able to attract such a high quality of pool of wonderful human beings. And in this process, of course, we verify all of their application information. We speak with their teachers. We process the work and visa eligibility, proof of education and degrees. We speak with the professors and those educational institutions. We verify personal and professional references. We check that the childcare hours that are really have been taken care of by the person working with children, because many times when you have an occupational therapist, for instance, they have worked a lot with, older people, or physical therapists, they have worked with adults. And it's a very different thing if you have a grown-up that you're working with than if you're working with children. So we really make sure that they have understanding on how to work with children. And we also ask not just what experience, what age group you have, but also what is your interest? What age group would you like to work with? So we can then, in the matching process, help you and the care professionals find each other, that it's a good fit. We provide a very comprehensive personal interview, criminal background check, personal analysis, like a personality analysis, because we found that people get hired for the skill set and they get fired because the relationship doesn't work out, right? It's sometimes when you get in a personal relationship, when you trying to find your spouse, or in the working relationship, you get hired because you have good stuff on your resume, and you get fired because you're not getting along with the people or with your manager. And we want to make sure that we're understanding the personality. Each person has a unique personality, and we use the Dr. Hartman personality analysis, the color code, and that's an incredible tool. I very encourage you to look into it. If you contact us, I will give my contact information again at the end. I will give you a free access to that test that we're using. Understanding yourself and understanding the people that you work with, and understand what kind of personalities you get along well, makes you a better manager when hiring for your care team. It's also good for the job, but especially in the care team when it's so interpersonal and so close to home. So really encourage you to use that tool, and I provide that to you for free at the end. Then the language assessment is a very important one, to make sure that they really have a good working knowledge of English. And to complete it, an Apex Social Academy, we have 40 hours of online training that they're going through, and we have a full day of in-person workshop where we're verifying and practicing different scenarios to help with the cultural adjustments. And of course, the pre-departure training goes for several months before they even arrive. And once they're matched, then it goes into the preparation phase on getting ready for leaving their home country or their home state when it's a young American and arriving in this new location. And our unique approach really is that we are here to empower each family by matching them based on your needs with a compassionate, high qualified, culturally rich live-in care professional. And I hope that Lindsay will speak a little bit later about it, what we do. I'm just checking on time. Where's my clock here? I think, how much more time do I have, Lucy?
Like 5-ish minutes.
Okay, and I'm gonna keep it short here. So the people that we recruit have backgrounds in these professions. a lot in the therapy fields, OT, PT, speech, ABA, RBT, pediatric nursing, but also in fields like social work, because social work in Germany is very much included in daycare, preschools, in all kinds of different social settings. So the social work that we know in the US, where it's more like working with substance abuse or homeless. In Germany, the social workers are really focused into the family integration part. Education, early childhood education, special needs care and special needs education is it's a 5-year degree, very comprehensive. It's a combination between therapy, education, and nursing. For somebody looking for an in-home caregiver, this is the profession that they're training to be the best person you can have in your home. I really love that specific special needs care professional. I think it's not even existing in the US, that degree. And our standards include, besides the degree, we require that they have at least 400 hours of childcare experience, and it's verified, and it's not just from their own family or their own siblings, but actually working with kids in a in-home setting or in a group setting. English is very important, the willingness to relocate, to commit to at least 12 months with the option to extend for a second time for 12 months, so up to 24 months, and in alignment with our core values and mission and vision. I think we will send that out after so you can see if you are in alignment with what we believe in. So the family process, if you're interested in learning if the Apex Social Live-In Developmental Childcare Solution could be the missing piece to your care team, this is the process that you would go through. First, you would schedule a complimentary consultation. You go to our website, register, you would get an appointment, you have a free consultation. And in this consultation, we try to understand what is your need and then give you a feedback on where we believe we can help you. And we will be very frank when we see that we can't help you. So it's not a waste of your time. Within 10, 15 minutes, you will know if we can move forward and it makes sense to, look further, or if this is not a good solution. And the second one is the personalized care plan. Out of that needs assessment, what you need for your kids and your family to functioning better, we create this personalized care plan that we use as expectation management tool for the care professional, and also to measure and help them have professional success along the way, that you have a good communication with them and that the child develops in the best way possible. The third one would be you are interviewing your top people that our matching team is recommending, but you also have, once you get approved, you have access to our database, and the people on there, they have been with us for several years. And once they come online, they typically, right now we have people for October 2024, but we understand nobody thinking even about October 2024. They're thinking about October 2023. So next month, right? Americans need childcare ideally yesterday. And the Germans, when we first speak with them, they're planning on coming in 1 or 2 or 3 years. So we're bringing that gap together, and you get to choose and to interview people that have been on our program and in training and in conversation and vetted and screened for several years. And we keep their hands tight and said, don't worry, your family will come, don't worry. And then when you sign up, you will have people available in the next few months. Also in the fall, we have a peak. 75% of the people are coming in the fall within a year because of the school year system. And in the spring, it's going to be much lower. So signing up early is important, that you have enough time to prepare. But right now is a good time because we have the fall season and we have candidates available. And then when you meet somebody, you like them, they like you, you make an offer, they accept your offer, and that's what we call you have a match. At that point, our team starts to work specifically on your agreement, on the terms, booking the flight, getting the visa ready, and then within 4 to 6 weeks, they can arrive at your home. We organize the support team. Every location where we are in Virginia, we have a wonderful support team that will be in touch with you before arrival, on the day of the arrival. Within 2 weeks, they come in person. And then every month, we're organizing events for the care professionals, and you will be one-on-one. You get your your management from Apex to support you with every question that you have along the way to become the best employer for your care team member. And then you welcome your care professional. And then hopefully from there, you will have relief with having this extra person in your home that comes as your dedicated childcare expat. That's what I call it, that come with a free blank social agenda. They don't have to go to the birthday party from the grandma, don't have to walk their own dog. They're there for you, and you have the freedom to schedule with them your 40, 45 hours a week. So the overall cost is a very important topic to talk about. I view it as an investment in the future of your child. The earlier you get the best help possible to help your child to develop to their fullest potential, the lower the cost and the effort will be down the road. So I like to think about it. People that are most successful with our program and with our care professionals, they have full-time childcare needs. Somebody who only needs 10 hours a week, we're not a good fit, because all the recruiting and the programming and the supporting of the care professionals years before they even come, and then during the year, is very people intensive. And in order to make that cost work, we have a program fee that we spend out over the course of an entire year. And between the pay to the care professional and the pay to us as an agency to make this organization work and you happy and the care professional happy, I think about it as if your budget works between a $20 to $30 an hour on a full-time basis, you're in good shape. Or if you translate that hourly rate into a full-time annual budget, you take, let's say, $25 times 2,000 hours work, that's a $50,000. And depending on your location, your number of children, the responsibilities, the caregiver's background and experience, this is all factoring in on what you can negotiate with the care professionals. And if the total cost for you is going to be more on the lower end of the 50,000, or if it's going to be more like towards 60 or 70,000. So I hope this is helpful in terms of the overall cost and investment. And then this way. Some of the customer feedback, I leave it on here. Families who have successful placements, they never go back. We have families with us for over 10 years, and the only reason they left us sometimes were either we didn't have any candidates, because there were some years where we couldn't recruit when it was uncertain. We were 2 years closed where the borders were closed. In those years, families had to find other solutions, and they were in tears. So we were really happy that we survived that really challenging 2 years of closed borders where we couldn't bring people in. And we're back here with a great team, happy to support and to move our organization forward to help more families and more kids with disabilities for years to come. So this is my contact information. Again, please send me an email, connect with me on LinkedIn, or schedule your complimentary consultation, and our team would be happy to get you the free color code, or just to talk with you specifically what your specific needs are. And I think with that, I'm open for questions later on. And I think the next one would be Lindsay. So I give it back to Lucy.
Yeah, we'll turn things over to Lindsay to share kind of from the parent perspective. And then I know that we've gotten some questions in the chat that I haven't asked yet. And I should have said, great, that's right where you should put them. And as after Lindsay speaks, we'll go through and work through all those.
Questions that are in there.
But
But
now we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. I'll be able to address some of the questions and how we're using the waiver system and how we're able to pay our attendant directly through that program. So, hi, I'm Lindsay. We have a 9-year-old with multiple disabilities, and we have a very fiery 4.5-year-old. And about, I guess about a year ago, maybe a little bit longer, we had my mother-in-law helping us out a lot. And our son was getting a little too big for her to be able to manage. He has mobility issues, seizure activity, and so we needed help. And one of the families that we know within Fairfax County recommended Apex, so we started looking into it. And Calvin is on the CCC Plus waiver and is currently on the wait list for the DD waiver. Just to kind of jump on that soapbox a little bit, they stopped giving us a time frame on when we can expect him to come off of that waiver. When we were first on it 7.5 years ago, they said probably around 5 to 6 years, and then it moved to 12, and then they just were like, we have no idea. So we were eligible for the CCC Plus waiver. It was the EDCD waiver at the time. So we have 32 hours of care available as attendant care. And then we also have on top of that a base amount for respite care that's available as well. So we can employ family members who often take care of our children, but we're also able to actually employ our care professional through Apex. So the weekly stipend that is required to pay the attendant care or the attendant through Apex, we actually have that going through the CCC Plus waiver, which I believe right now the rate is 15.
It's $16.45 an
Oh,
hour, and it's going up 5%. And I'm
oh.
not doing the math on the top of my head real quick. $17-ish an hour.
Well, that's great. So we actually are able to be a little more attractive in a way for the folks who are vetting us as well to come into our home and help us with our kiddo, because we're able to provide them with $16 an hour. And right now, Tessa's wonderful. I cannot say enough about the relationship that we've built and how much our family loves our care attendant. We were focused mainly on speech therapists or physical therapists, and she fit the bill. She works so lovely with our children, and more importantly, gets our humor, which we appreciate, because these folks are coming into your home and you're cohabitating, and that can be overwhelming for some families. So we're very lucky that we've been able to build that relationship, and it really is based on communication and understanding about, where we are and what the needs are for our kiddos. So Tessa mainly supports Calvin, and so she helps in the morning with morning routine, and picks him up from school. She will take him to his therapies 3 times a week, which is incredibly helpful. But she also gets to sit in on those therapies, so she can then go back and do the homework with him. If he doesn't have a therapy appointment that day, she often does speech therapy homework or his PT homework, so that he can continue to build strength. I had to jump on a plane this morning to come down to my Charlotte office that I manage because of an emergency. So I wouldn't have been able to do that otherwise without the support of Tessa in our home and being able to take over and help. I will note that I am listed as the primary care provider for our son through as the employee of record. So Tessa is able to work up to 45 hours and get paid through the waiver system when she's working with Calvin. Once she's working with both children, then we're not able to pay her through the waiver. I just want to make sure that that is clear, that the support is dedicated to that child with the disability. And so far we've been able to connect with our local and our regional support people on a monthly basis, and any help that I can provide on helping navigate the system from the parent perspective, I'm happy to. complicated and frustrating at times. And it's I just went through Calvin you have to get renewed every year for eligibility, and it got held up. And so I've been on the phone with CSB for the last 3 days finding out why. So it's fun. But it is, Apex has been wonderful, and we're able to really hone in on the specialty that we're looking for to help advance our child. And continue those therapies at home, because when you get home from work, it's exhausting. You go right into parent mode, and it's really hard to maintain that therapy throughout that period after school. So our family is very, very thankful for Tessa and just the support that she provides in our home.
Yeah. Some families are, especially when they first meet with us or hear about an Apex social care professional, they're worried about the live-in and the loss of privacy. Could you speak a little bit to that, on how you manage that and how
Sure.
the benefits outweigh that? You're like, this is so worth it because it's worth to me. This week, I don't have my care professional. I have an occupational therapist from Luxembourg with me all year. And this week she is back home renewing her visa. So I'm by myself, my 3-year-old's all on the couch, TV on. And I'm like, oh my God. Now I'm like, when she's not here, I'm realizing on how much I'm depending on that other adult with a bright mind and a bright brain, being
Absolutely.
in my home, having that, hey, I need to run out, these little flexibility things that I didn't have, that I gotten totally used to over the last many years. And then when she's not here, I'm like, oh my God. So maybe you can speak a little bit on also how you and your husband, how you managed that new dynamic with having somebody live in your home.
Sure. So we are lucky that we have a bedroom in our basement that has some privacy with its own private bathroom. So she does have her own space. Thank you. We've also just been, in the first couple of weeks, we sat down and talked about, what do you need? Do you require certain things just to make yourself comfortable? One of the things that was a really easy ask was, we normally alternate working from home just so that someone is close by in case there's an emergency at school. And once she got comfortable, she said, hey, do you mind the day that Toby works from home? Do you mind going into the office so that I just have a couple hours of quiet to myself? It just really makes a difference. So I would just say making sure that you have that open line of communication and what responsibilities and what needs people have, because that might change too. If you're having a bad day, you may say, hey, you know what? I'm going to actually join you for Friday night movie night. Is that okay? And that's actually been something that we do pretty regularly now, which is really nice. She's not necessarily on the clock, but she takes that opportunity, and, we pop some popcorn and we snuggle up and we watch a movie as an extended family, which is really lovely. And then, there's flexibility also where, hey, I have something going on Friday night. Do you mind if I kick off early? So I can't stress enough that communication is really key on that.
Yeah. How did your children and also your child with disability and your neurotypical child, how did the relationship between them change with having Tess in the home?
Oh my goodness. There's just it's nice because if one of them is running around screaming like a typical kiddo does, and the other one needs a little bit of extra love, then there's an extra set of hands to be able to pivot and do that. My husband and I do a lot of advocacy work, and we do a lot of stuff with a lot of different organizations. So one of us is usually on a phone call. So it's just nice to have a second set of hands. And our children, I mean, my daughter looked at her the other day and said, "You're not going to leave us, right?" We were like, "Well, Miss Tessa will be with us until April," and she just kind of hugged her and said, "But I love you." And I said, "Yeah, but she doesn't live here, but we'll go visit. We'll go visit her." And Calvin, he gives her a hug every day before he goes into the school, and is excited to see her every afternoon when he picks her up.
Super.
Yeah, it's really
On the
special.
professional level, on what was your perception of, or how do you experience the impact of her coming as with a speech therapy background,
So our son
um,
uses an
picking
ACE.
up and picking up from the US therapist? Because what's very important to ask, we want to be very clear here, they're degreed therapists in Germany, but they're not licensed to do therapy independent in the United States.
Yes.
However, if you have a childcare provider who happens to have a therapy background and a degree in a different from Germany, and they come here and they go to the therapist in the United States that your child's working with, then they can take on all the things that you usually are required to do as a parent and be the therapist. So how was that experience for you?
That has been incredibly beneficial. As a speech therapist, Calvin goes to therapy twice a week now, and he has two different therapists. So it's been really helpful for her to see different styles of and approaches towards speech therapy. Calvin uses an AAC device to communicate. So that's been wonderful because she didn't have any exposure to that previously. So the growth from October of last year when she started with us to now has been wonderful. And she also has the opportunity as there are volunteer hours required on the J1 visa, that she's been able to volunteer with our speech therapist to also shadow with other kiddos while Calvin's in school. So she also gets the opportunity to learn different approaches with different children as well, which I think is really valuable because no kid is going to have the same day every time. And there might be different approaches that she uses with another kid or observes with another child with our speech therapist that might benefit our kid, during a typical day that he might be having. So having just to develop understanding the path to developing speech and communication is foundationally really just incredibly helpful, because adding a computer to assist his communication is it can be complicated, and it takes a while to get used to pivoting and making sure that you're implementing that in your day-to-day life. And she's been able to pick that up really quickly.
Yeah. Super.
I will pull us through a couple of the other questions we got. And I know that Susan and Lindsay kind of touched on this, but essentially in most cases, if you had no waiver, you would be paying for Apex Social. If you had a waiver, you can use that to offset significantly some of the cost of Apex Social. But like Susan said, that the actual calculation there is going to depend upon how many hours of care you have, how many kids you have in the household, right? Like the number of hours you have through your waiver. So
it's a little math puzzle that we love to solve, so
that's a perfect way of putting it. So there's no one hard and fast answer there, but yes, it's an amazing way to do this. Susan and her team were great about sharing before. Like she mentioned, Apex Social can work with adults with disabilities, I think up to age 26, but once that adult with the disability is in that 18 to 26 bracket, their caregiver would be an American caregiver as opposed to someone who is coming in from another country. And yes, I believe we've talked too about it can certainly be harder to find someone who's interested in working with someone in that age, but it's not impossible. I think all of us who have struggled to find caregivers can say hard, but not impossible really rings true with what that process is like in general. Yes, absolutely. Another great question here. Oh, I see, Susan, you answering it already. What does the family have to provide for the caregiver? So, Lindsay, maybe this is a great one you can answer. You talked a little bit about just kind of getting to know them and personality things, but like a bedroom, a vehicle, what does all that look like?
So we have it has to be a private bedroom, and I'm not sure if it has to be a private restroom or not, but
It doesn't have
it
to, but
doesn't.
it's beneficial.
It
Think
is
about
definitely
it as
nice.
how to make your person most comfortable that they want to stay with you, because attracting, hiring is one thing, keeping and retaining good talent is another one. Everybody that managed people in the workspace
Mhm.
is not very different. And if you're all of a sudden CEO of Home Inc., of your family's basically operation, you will be on the journey to becoming the best employer that you can, because you want to retain your talent. And think about it as, yes, there's minimum requirement, and if you're only doing the minimum, what are you going to get, right? It's karma. It's like you get what you get, but the minimum is a private room with a door with a lock, ideally has a window so people don't feel like claustrophobic. If it has a private bathroom, that's great. In some cases, we allowed, we said, would you be okay with that? Because if the care professional is okay with it, then, it's okay with us too.
And for us, we had we had an extra vehicle for my mother-in-law before she wasn't able to drive anymore here. So we were lucky enough to be able to keep that vehicle, and our care professional uses it. But otherwise, I know that she has friends who have to coordinate when they use a vehicle, and she'll use one of the vehicles with the car seats when she takes our son to therapies.
Yeah. In my family, I've added another car to the equation because I live in Orange County, and anybody who has been in Orange County, if you don't have a vehicle, you're out of luck. You get a mature, you want to have a mature person joining your family that is somehow independent. So they also need a little bit of independence to also, get away from the crazy sometimes, So I want them, when they're done working, to also have time to go and explore. I put limits on it, and we can talk about all the best scenarios and cases. I mean, we have 15 years, 2,000 cases. I have learned my heart share in the beginning, all the things that you shouldn't be doing as new parents, inviting somebody into your home. There needs to be rules and guidelines and, policies in place, so everybody knows what they can and cannot do. So, but it's all about thinking about, as how do I make this person that is working for me understanding what I need and what I can offer. So it's a working, beautiful relationship, a beautiful working relationship with a family component, because they're giving up a lot. They don't have their friends here. They don't have their family here. They're coming for you. They come for your job, for your family, to care for your kids. And then they ultimately will stay here if they have a good social network around it. We work on this, but it's also a little bit your responsibility. If you don't give them a way to get around, they probably will get homesick and will go home very quickly.
That's a great point. We had another general question about caregiver taxes. Yes, in general, federal income tax is not withheld from someone who's a live-in caregiver. I'm not a tax professional. You should talk to a tax professional.
You should definitely talk to your tax professional. On the J1 visa, I believe that live-in caregivers taxes are waived. However, our tax professional, because we just did this a few months ago, recommended that withholdings happen at the time of the paycheck, which is why it's nice to be able to go through the waiver system, because they take care of all of the W-2s and everything. You don't have to set that up and manually do that on your own. So that is also another benefit of having the CCC plus waiver help in attendant care and pay for that, because they allocate all of those things and then they generate a W-2 at the end of the year. So it definitely helps that process a lot. And then once they file their taxes, they'll just get that money back.
Yeah, we use a payroll service for people that are not on a waiver where this is not already baked in. So we require all our families to have a good payroll system set up, and we have a referral, like a preferred vendor that we really like work with. It's HomePay. It's a subsidiary of care.com, and the founders there, they're super attentive, and they do the same thing. You basically report your hours. We have the minimum, and then they file all the taxes and withholdings, because that's a whole nother job I didn't want to learn. So I'm like, I do what I do best, and everything else I'm going to outsource, you know.
All right. Oh, so
Lucy, what
this
else?
is a great question about lifting. Can caregivers operate lifts, lift kids who need physical transfers, those kinds of things?
Depends, right? If you have a 200-pound child, then, you know, it depends really. You know, you shouldn't be hiring a 45, you know, or 100-pound caregiver. So it's like this, what can the person do and how do you do it? And what is a safe way to lift? It's
That's one of the,
possible, but it depends.
we put that in our profile that we would have to have someone who could lift at least 50 pounds, because if Calvin's having a bad day, he needs mobility assistance. So it was just something that we were really clear about when we were looking for a care professional, that they would be able to manage that.
Yeah. The more you can put upfront into your family profile. So when you have a first consultation, your family advisor will ask you many questions, and those information will go into your family profile. Then you have the ability to go online, you have access to all the information, you put your information in, and you want to be as transparent as possible, because there's nothing worse than making this job look like A, and then it really is B. That's the setup for a disaster, when somebody comes thinking they're going to be doing A, and then your job is going to be B. You know, very important. And also putting in what is the personal and professional development that your care professional is going to experience on the program. Because the reason why we're able to get degreed nurses, teachers, therapists to join our program is because they see the United States as 30 years ahead of Germany in their professional development. All of the people in the US, they're degreed with very high research-based, evidence-based, and Germany is just catching up, you know. But the people themselves, they're very compassionate, and they want to get exposure to that US part. So anything that you can put in what you're working on with your child, and who are the resources that you're pulling in, if you're going to the NAPA center, if you are having a special, you know, session with your child, put this into the profile, because that will give you a higher chance of attracting somebody that wants to experience that and wants to be part of that development of your child.
There's one final kind of group of questions that I'll try and lump together so we can get a bunch answered before we head out. And this was sort of a question about, again, that intersection of waiver and paying for Apex Social. So I feel like it's helpful to think of this as like, imagine with Apex Social or hiring a nanny or hiring any caregiver. You agree on this rate, this dollar amount for services. For the point of this conversation, I'll say that's $100, which is obviously a ridiculous number, but it's easier to do the math. So let's say you agree, we're going to pay you $100 for this service. The waiver will pay you $17 and change an hour for these hours. What's left? What's left out of the total amount that I owe? And then how can I pay for that with a special needs trust, with an ABLE account, with personal funds, with an inheritance, with our income, with whatever else that is. So you're not subsidizing waiver hours. You're saying, here's what we owe overall. The waiver pays this chunk and we bill those hours to the waiver. The balance is paid through, like I said, whatever other means that you have. As someone who is a sandwich caregiver and working on aging parents who need live-in caregivers, the kind of numbers that Susan quoted, the like $20 to $30 an hour range, is very much what we see in the DC metro area as the average hourly cost of a caregiver. Obviously, waiver is less than that. So we know families are always scrambling. So we're really grateful to Apex Social today coming to lend their ideas and expertise. Lindsay, for sharing that family perspective, which I think is so valuable. You'll hear back from me. Susan's contact information will be there. please feel free to reach out to them and do the kind of free consultation and chat to see if this is a good fit for you, or reach out to me with questions about waivers, or reach out to all of us with questions about anything. And we're work as a team, and we're happy to help you as best as we can. We know no answer is perfect for everybody, but I've been very excited to hear about how this answer is working for some families. And so we're glad to have them with us. So huge thank you to Susan and Lindsay today. And thank you all for coming. We'll get
Thank you
information out
for
to you.
having me. And I want to say one last thing. All of you, you're my heroes. You're moms and dads who have kids that have more than the typical needs. My heart goes to everyone, and we can do it together. You know, you're not in this alone, and you are the role model for so many people who don't experience that. They don't even know how good they have it. So thank you. Kudos to you, and hope to see you soon.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.